out there, to cook or not to cook oysters? That is the question. I know what some of you are thinking. That is never, not ever, no, never the question. That's what you're thinking. It's utterly unthinkable to take the quintessential, ambrosial, call it what you will, the briny depths of fresh oysters, all the mysterious flavor of the sea, and ruin its magnificent taste and texture with something as brutal, as completely uncivilized as heat. Why would anyone ever want to do that? Cooking, you say, ruins the chew of a raw oyster. It also intensifies the flavor, making already flavorful raw oysters too flavorful, over the top, unpalatable to raw oyster lovers. Now, as you know, I am a confessed raw oyster lover. Not just a lover, I'm a freak, I'm a fanatic. When I get near these things, I can't stop myself. Crisp and cold and briny and everything that's wonderful. There is nothing more perfect in the whole realm of gastronomy than a perfect raw oyster. But these, from which I just sampled one, are perfect oysters, plucked from northern waters. What happens when you can't get perfect oysters, as in summer? You know the old saying, avoid eating oysters during the months without an R, like July and August. And the reason that is because oysters are spawning. Oysters are spawning during those months. They're making babies, they're making eggs, and they get soft, and they get milky, and they get bland tasting. But listen to old Dave. You don't have to avoid them entirely just sitting around and praying for September, which finally has an R in it. You also don't have to switch over to anything else, because there is nothing else. Nothing compares to raw oysters, you know that. So what do? You fry them. That's what you do, you fry them. A coating automatically puts something back into the texture, and cooking bumps up the blandness in the taste. So now you can have oysters year-round. You can eat them raw in cold weather and fried in hot weather, just like you are. I will make converts of you yet. Watch. You begin with shucked oysters, which I hasten to add I do not normally buy, but here's a whole bunch of shucked oysters that I purchased, refrigerated, shucked by somebody else. You know, when I'm buying oysters for raw oysters, always in the shell, because freshness is almost everything when it comes to enjoying oysters raw. But if you're going to be frying them, you don't have to go to the extra effort of shucking them yourself. It's just as good. So buy a whole bunch of shucked oysters. Second, buy a type of oyster that you know can stand some pumping up. And for me, that means Gulf oysters. Here comes the controversial part. Frankly, I have never liked Gulf oysters as raw oysters. Now, that might be something of a heretical remark to certain viewers. I'm sorry, but I have tried, and I've tried. Lord knows I've tried. I've stood for hours at the Acme Oyster Bar in New Orleans. I've slammed those raw Gulf critters back by the hundreds, waiting for an epiphany. I will keep trying. I will eat thousands more if I have to. But so far, to me, the Gulf oysters raw taste unsalty, muddy, flat, next to great raw oysters from cold northern waters. But, fried, they are perfect. The frying just lifts the flavor of those New Orleans babies to just where you want it. So here we go. Let me show you how to fry some. I've got a whole lot of New Orleans Gulf oysters here for frying today. Now, I've got a lot of fryers going as well, and I don't expect you to have multiple deep fat fryers or go in full tilt like this in your kitchen, but do have the right cooking oil on hand when you plan to make these. Skip the trendy oils. We don't want olive oil for this. We don't want, what do we have here? Lemon oil. Don't want this. We don't want hazelnut oil. We just want, you know, a good non-flavorful vegetable oil. Canola oil is fine. Sunflower oil is fine. You need a deep pot. You need heat. You need a skimmer. People call this sometimes a spider. Here's my spider, just to get in there. That's all you need, okay? Now, we're going to start from the simplest and go to the more complicated. The simplest and lightest version of fried oysters is just with flour, just with a seasoned flour. I've got some flour here. I'm going to put some salt and pepper in my flour. Voila, seasoned flour, and not very seasoned at that either. You can put other stuff on the oysters after you cook them. Now I'm going to take a couple oysters, and I'm going to put them in the seasoned flour. Lo and behold, let me take one more. Lo and behold, I'm making fried oysters. I have here, I love this deep fryer. This is called a DeLonghi deep fryer. And I've got it set at about 375 degrees. Put my oyster oysters up here. Then you drop this in. Voila. And I love the DeLonghi because it starts to rotate when it drops in. And we're going to fry that just for a couple moments until it gets nice and crisp. While they're cooking, let's do, stay down please. While they're cooking, here we go. While they're cooking, let's do a variation, which is a much crunchier rendition. We're going to do it with cracker meal, because these are crushed crackers and they're part of the coating. Now, I didn't say breadcrumbs. When I'm doing a crumb coating for fish, I like to use cracker meal. I think it's lighter and crisper in the finished product. So we're going to once again take 3 oysters, and I'm going to dip them in the flour. 2, 3. And then after the flour, I'm going to put them, so this is going to be a little bit of a heavier coating also because it's got more stuff on it. I'm going to put them in egg. And then from the egg, we go into the cracker meal. Okay, cook these guys. Turn them around in the coating. Your range for deep frying is anywhere from about, let's say, 350 to 375. Less than that, the oysters are going to get, or anything is going to get oily. More than that, it's going to get brown too fast. Here, I'm almost at 380. I'm just at 375. So let me take these guys and put them back here. Here we go. Very nice. Let's take a quick look at DeLonghi over here, see how these guys are doing. Almost done. I'm going to let that go just another moment. It just takes about 2 minutes to cook it. Okay, now in these 2 methods, when they're done, you're going to taste only oyster and frying. But some people like them with Cajun seasoning. So let's make a Cajun seasoning, because really the theme today is New Orleans, because I think it's the best place in the world for fried oysters. So you mix together seasonings in these proportions. Teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of garlic powder, teaspoon of onion powder, teaspoon of dried tarragon, half a teaspoon of white pepper, half a teaspoon of black pepper, half a teaspoon of dried basil, quarter teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and a teaspoon of paprika. And I've got those mixed together in these proportions. And then you just add as much as you want to your various coatings. Here to the flour. And here I'm adding to the cracker meal. Okay. Now, I think it's time for me to remove some oysters. Oh, these are very pretty. I like these. There's your cracker meal coating. Exhibit A, that's the cracker meal coating. Let's take a look at just the plain flour. See, the plain flour, you don't get very much on the outside, but you certainly do get a lot of oyster. Ah, that's quite a big difference. Can you see those side by side? Which one do you like better? Well, I'm going to taste them for you in a moment and tell you which one I like better. Now, you can just repeat this. Take some oysters. Now I'm putting these in the seasoned flour. Ta-da. I see that my DeLonghi is not back up to 375, so I'm going to drop these in another pot back here. So that's at the right temperature. And then you take these and put these in the seasoned flour. Dip them in the egg. And then dip them in. Let me just mix this better together. Dip them in the seasoned cracker meal. There you go. Beautiful. Those will be cooked in just a moment. But you haven't seen anything yet. These 4 versions were just warm-ups just to get us going. Remember that great line, peel me a grape? Well, this is fry me an oyster. Lots of them when we come back. First, a little taste test. I've got here, this is the oyster that was done just with flour. I love that. Nice, crackly, crunchy coating. And what I get is mostly oyster flavor. When you do it with the flour that's been seasoned, the coating seems exactly the same, but you get a lot of flavor. other than oyster flavor. You get the Cajun flavor. Let's see. This is the one that was done with the cracker meal. It's very nice. It's very light and crumbly on the outside. It's a little bit heavier than the flour one. I think I'm going to go for the flour. But you know what? In the version with the seasoning, I like the way all that seasoning clings to the cracker meal. So my winners are, I like either the plain flour or the seasoned cracker meal one. So try it at home. Make your own experiments, of course. Each to his own taste. Now, let's do some more variations. Let's do a cornmeal variation. They like to use cornmeal very much in New Orleans for oysters. In a bowl, you combine a cup of finely ground cornmeal. I have it right here. 2 teaspoons of salt. This also is going to be seasoned a little bit. 3/4 of a teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Mix that together. And simply coat your oysters in that. Okay. Put them right in this tray here. Let me grab a bunch of oysters. Coat in the cornmeal. Very nice, very nice. One nice thing about oysters is they're kind of naturally wet, you know? So you don't have to wet them to make any coating adhere. They just use their own natural wetness. That's it. Ready to roll. And there we go. I'll take them out when they are finished. Remind me to keep an eye on them. Let's do another variation. This one is cornmeal and flour together. You get a different type of texture, particularly because we're going to include eggs in this one. I've beaten 2 eggs together in this bowl with a cup of milk. In the second bowl, you combine flour with some of the seasoning that we made before. This is all Cajun style that we're doing here today. That's a nice dose of seasoning in there. Now what you want to do in the third bowl is combine some masa harina, which is a Mexican-style corn flour, with some of the same Cajun spice mix. Alrighty? Now, take your oysters, a couple of them, nice and juicy, and coat them with the flour mix. Just like this. And then what you want to do, dip them in the eggs. And this is definitely, obviously, going to be a much heavier coating. Dip these in the eggs. Oh, meanwhile, looks like my corn meal flour oysters are just about perfect, so let me take those out. Oh yeah, beauties. Beauties. And you see you get that sort of dry, crunchy outside, which is what the cornmeal tends to give you. Let's just put those there. We're going to fill that tray right up in a few minutes. Okay, I've got the oysters in the eggs. Now you take them out of the eggs and give them one more coating, this time in the seasoned masa harina. Mix that up real well and put them in my spider. There we go. Okay, and now we're ready to fry. Let's see, over here, oh, I'm about 360. I think that'll be okay. I think 375 is optimum, but 360 is okay. And remind me to keep an eye on those. We're going to cook them until they're golden brown. Now, another possibility is to do it in a batter, and this is the heaviest coating of all, if you like that kind of thing. In a bowl, you combine a cup of flour, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 2 egg yolks, which I have done over here. And to this, just mix those guys together for starters. To this, you want to add also a tablespoon of vegetable oil, which let's see, I think I've done that already. And you want to add beer, 1.5 cups of room temperature beer. And you want to whisk this together until it's nice. Well, it doesn't have to be that smooth, actually. I mean, I like lumpy batters. I think they fry up better. And there is a nice lumpy beer batter. Okay, now what you want to do is let that rest for 30 minutes at room temperature, which I have done. And here's my batter that's rested for 30 minutes. And now, beat a couple of egg whites just till they form peaks, and then fold the egg whites into this batter. And this is going to make this somewhat heavy batter, it's going to make it lighter by the airiness that this brings. Meanwhile, let me take a look over here because I hear some serious frying going on. Beautiful. Get these guys over here. There you go. And all that redness comes from that wonderful Cajun seasoning that's on the outside. Alrighty, now these guys, let's see, I've got the egg white that I'm mixing in here. And what you want to do, of course, is simply dip the oysters in this batter, coat them, and fry them. And let's just take a couple oysters right here. Dip them in the batter. Very nice. I've got my thing here at, just about 360. That should be good. Can't wait for you to see how these guys come out. Knock off a little bit of that batter. Okay, here we go. You ready? Action. And I think you want to be careful that they stay separate. So unclump them a little bit at that moment. Now, these things are so delicious that you can just serve them completely as they are. And you don't have to gussy them up, you don't have to worry about it. But let me show you a few ways of serving oysters that are kind of fancy. You got company coming, you want to do a nice dinner party with fried oysters. One thing that you could do is take leaves of lettuce, like this is green leaf lettuce. Take an oyster, put it in the lettuce, and then take some kind of fresh herb, like I've got some chervil over here, which is an herb that I like very much. Put that on top of the oyster, and then you can use as well a little bit of balsamic vinegar, which happens to go very nicely with oysters. There we go, little drop of the balsamic. And a shard of Parmigiano Reggiano also on this, fitted right over the top like that. Roll. And this is a fantastic kind of pass-around thing at the start of a dinner party. Let's see, I'm just going to leave this right here. Well, you can put it right on this plate, for example. There's that. Now, another great thing that you can do is you can serve it with a salsa. Let's just take a look at our oysters here. Oh yeah, nice and puffy and fried on the outside with a real nice crispness to them. That's a strong possibility, that beer batter. I see that the egg white has really lightened it. They're not particularly heavy. That's a great thing. Okay, another thing you can do, make a salsa. And I've got a very interesting salsa for you that I bet you never saw before. I've taken tomatillos, green tomatoes, taken the husk off, chopped them up real fine, and with this I'm going to mix some pink grapefruit. And I know this may sound a little strange to you, but the combination of the tomatillo and the pink grapefruit is absolutely fabulous. But I'm not done yet. To this, I'm going to mix some crumbled bacon, and I'm going to mix some cilantro as well. I came up with this thing some time ago for another dish. It had nothing to do with fried oysters, but then later on I discovered that it's absolutely fabulous on fried oysters. Mixing in some fresh cilantro leaves, and I'll remove this lettuce one from here for now. But let's just take a couple of, let's say, these. And garnish this with a little bit of the tomatillo and grapefruit salsa. Fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Lastly, we're talking New Orleans. So we got to do a po' boy. In a bowl, you combine half cup prepared mayonnaise, teaspoon of grated lemon zest, tablespoon of fresh lemon juice, and you make this nice flavored lemony mayonnaise. Spread the mayo on a French roll, top it with oysters, shredded lettuce, and thinly sliced tomatoes. You got yourself one of the greatest treats of New Orleans, my friend. Po' boy, come back in a moment, show you what it looks like. Po' boys. I've got two po' boys. I'm a rich boy. I've got two po' boys. Now, I horrified you a few moments ago by telling you that, yes, it's okay to fry oysters, to eat them some way other than raw. And now I'm going to horrify you again. Because to most right-thinking gastronomic people, taking something fried and putting them on a sandwich, it's not exactly classical French practice. However, in New Orleans, they've been doing this for a long time, putting fried seafood on a sandwich, and I love it. These guys mix with that lemony mayonnaise and with lettuce and tomato, and there's something else that you got to put on a proper New Orleans po' boy. Of course, this stuff. Oh, how far dare I go? With this, there's no choice. You got to drink some beer. And if you can get some beer from New Orleans, like this Dixie beer, you're in very good shape. So let me pour myself a frosty mug. You can make po' boys with all kinds of things. You know, like a soft-shell crab po' boy is great also. But the classic is the fried oyster thing, and I really like it, and I'm going to demonstrate that right now. Wow. Wow. Great. You can use any of the fried oysters that we did. I like the cornmeal for this. But use what you like. Come back, see me again. Remember, life is a matter of taste. Bye-bye.